Let's welcome everybody joining in online or on demand or wherever. We're glad that you are with us and jumping in with us at Santa Cruz Bible Church this weekend. We are continuing a series called Come All Who Are Weary. And we're talking about the special invitations that Jesus gives us when we're tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, anxious, or just weary. Can anyone relate to any of those adjectives this morning? Okay, good. We got a lot of weary folks today, so this is going to connect. Now, confession time. You ready? And you can be honest. It's okay. How many of you have ever been so tired or so bored in church that you fell asleep? Come on, show hands, right? Oh, come on, more than that. I'm up here almost every week. I know it's more than that. Anyway, it's funny because I usually feel bad when I do it, but when you're the pastor, you feel really bad, right? You know, kind of thing. But it happens. But I remember I didn't go to church that often when I was a kid, but we went to this little small southern church that had pews. You know what I'm talking about when I say pew? Like those long wooden chairs, super comfortable. Yeah, and when I would get bored when I was little, I would just lay down across the whole pew and just take a full nap, you know, kind of a thing. And that's what I remember about church, was just sleeping. That was it, right? When I think about falling asleep in church, actually a few years ago, I was at a church where a well-known celebrity went to this church. And what was funny, great guy, okay? But every time I was speaking, when I would look and see him in the audience, he was asleep, like every single time. Sometimes before I even got up and said, welcome everybody, whatever, he was already gone. Like I look over and he's already passed out. And it kind of cracked me up while I was speaking to just look out in the audience and see this famous person completely like mouth open, like just gone, zonked out every single time. But what was really kind of weird about this was he would also post quotes from the message on social media during the service, which blew my mind because I was there, he was not so much, right? Sort of there, right? And I never asked him, like, how are you posting and snoring at the same time? But, you know, it'll forever be a mystery. I never got to ask, right? So, but that's not the wildest thing anyone has ever done, falling asleep in church. I want to show you an actual event from the Bible. And let's see if you've ever heard this one before. Acts 20, verse 7 says, on the first day of the week, we gathered with the local believers to share in the Lord's Supper. Now let me translate that. That's communion as we know it. And we're about to mention Paul, and we're going to be talking about the Apostle Paul, who wrote a lot of the books in the New Testament, okay? So here, let's keep going. Paul was preaching to them, and since he was leaving the next day, he kept talking until midnight, right? The upstairs room where we met was lighted with many flickering lamps, and as Paul spoke on and on, I love that the Bible even says that, a young man named Eutychus, sitting on the windowsill, became very drowsy, and finally he fell sound asleep and dropped 3 stories to his death below. Paul went down, bent over him, and took him into his arms. Don't worry, he said, he's alive. And then they all went back upstairs, shared in the Lord's Supper, and ate together. And Paul continued talking to them until dawn, and then he left. Meanwhile, the young man was taken home alive and well, and everyone was greatly relieved. Okay, can we talk about this story? This is such a weird story, right? So I want you to get, the Apostle Paul's with this group for a very short time. He knows I'm kind of in and out here, so I want to just kind of speak. So he probably gets there that evening, we assume, and then he's talking until midnight, and this young man is sitting in the window. Now, again, they didn't have glass windows back then, so this is just kind of an open space for ventilation, right? Kid's sitting in it. Paul's going on and on. He gets kind of drowsy, kind of, kind of whatever, and then falls asleep, falls backwards out of a 3-story window and dies, right? I mean, can you imagine this? This is just, I mean, there's a lot of weird things that happen in church services, but that's a really weird one, right? And then Paul rushes down prays over this kid, and then all of a sudden, he's alive, right? You know, you get the whole classic scene, and the kid's alive, and everyone's happy, and it's great. And then they have communion, and this is my favorite part. Paul gets back up, and is like, well, as I was saying, and then keeps going, like this didn't happen until dawn. This is what you call missing social cues, right? You know, I mean, people are literally dying for him to stop. Paul cares not. You couldn't get out of this service if you wanted to, because you could die right there in your seat, and Paul would pray you right back into the service and start over. Like, everyone was like, no one fall asleep, just please, let's get through this. You know, like, we're not going to make it, right? It's crazy. Has anyone ever heard this story in church before? Just a show of hands. Anybody? A few? Really? I'm impressed. I'm super impressed. Okay. If you haven't, now you have. So what's the point of this weird story, right? What is the point? And in reality, when you really think about it, this young guy was really experiencing one of the most important moments in his life at that moment. Now, unfortunately, he's known throughout history as the kid that fell out the window, right? But in that moment, I mean, really, the Apostle Paul is right there in front of him. There's an unprecedented movement of God that's happening, that's changing things, that's happening right in front of him. There's so many things happening. I mean, this is a big, important moment in his life. But as they say in the South, but y'all, I'm tired. He's too tired. He cannot be in this moment. He's thinking, I'd love to, oh my gosh, I'd love to do this, but I'm exhausted and I can't hang. And I can't be here in this moment. Now, I don't think any of us can get through preaching that long, okay? I usually do 25 to 30 minutes, and that's what I try to do. But I know in this situation, my famous friend wouldn't have made it at all, right? He would have fell out the window twice, probably, right? So, but it's interesting. Have you ever been exhausted in moments where you wish you weren't? So that's kind of what I'm thinking about this. Have you ever been exhausted in moments where you wish you weren't? And it wasn't because of 12 hours of preaching. It was because the pace of life is just too much. And you're moving and you're going and you're doing and you're moving and you're going and you're doing and you're doing these things. But inside, you're exhausted. And it's hard. You find it hard to be present for your family or your friends, or even hard to be present sometimes in meetings at work or whatever it is. It's just I'm there, but I'm not totally there because I'm so spent. And sometimes you have to know there's these little bitty signs that the pace that you're on is not sustainable. That you're just going and going and going, right? And the disciples, even of Jesus, the disciples of Jesus got caught in a pace that made it hard for them to be present because they were moving and going and doing it at a pace and going through these emotions. And in the very last night that they're with Jesus, minutes before Jesus is about to be carried away and arrested and beaten beyond recognition and crucified, and this is the last moments they have with Jesus, and these are moments that are important, historical moments that will be told over and over again for all of time. But in these moments, on that night, the disciples were struggling. They were exhausted. And it's kind of a sad moment because Jesus is praying and he's in agony because he knows he's about to die. And in tears, he comes back to the disciples for support and comfort. And what happens? Mark 14:37. It says, then he returned and found the disciples asleep. And he said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Couldn't you watch with me even 1 hour? Keep watch and pray so that you won't give in to temptation. For the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. And then Jesus left them again and prayed the same prayer as before. When he returned to them again, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open, and they didn't know what to say. So in this moment, these are literally the last minutes they have with Jesus. They can't stay awake. They're exhausted because of the pace they had been on, the emotions they were going through. Steps away is Judas and Roman soldiers about to arrest Jesus. This is all about to wrap up. But they just cannot meet this moment. And I want you to know, before I say this, there's nothing wrong with being tired. Everybody experiences that all the time, right? But I do think there's a weird regret that sets in when we are struggling with being present because of our pace. That I just can't be in moments that I wish I was in because I'm running so hard. I can't be in the moment because of the momentum of my life right now. The speed at which I'm moving and doing things right now is hindering my ability to enjoy certain moments or even be in the moment or engage the moments that I want to engage. So let me ask you a question. It's not a trick question. Do you have limitations? Do you have limits on what you're able to do? Right? Now here's the real question under that question. Do you know your limitations? Well, Matt, I don't like to think of myself as having limits. I like to think of myself as having potential. That there's nothing I can't do if I believe and I can fly and whatever. You know, whatever. I get it. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, we all have to be honest about our limitations because it's something that none of us want to admit that we have, but we all have them. We just like to pretend that they're not really there, right? There are times that you need help. You don't love it, but there's times that you need help. We all have built-in barriers in us that prevent us from trying to be everything to everyone. Because everyone is unique and has different personalities and skills, but no one has them all. Right? No one has them all. And because of that, you have limits. But the question is, do you know your limits? Do you honor those limits? Do you respect those limits? Or are they just kind of annoying? How do you feel about your limits? How do you feel about the fact that Jesus had limits? Well, Matt, Jesus didn't have limits. He was the Son of God. But he was also human. And he had to stop sometimes, and he had to rest sometimes, and he had to withdraw sometimes because he chose to live within the limitations of being a human. And I'm kind of thinking we should too, right? Look at Mark 6:30. It says, the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told them all they had done and taught. So let me pause right there and kind of explain that. So he sends a bunch of disciples out on kind of a little tour through some cities, and they're healing the sick and doing all these amazing things. And they're coming back, and they're really excited, and they're amped, and they're like, man, Jesus, you're not going to believe it. And they're kind of ready to do the next thing, right? And here's what happens. Verse 31, then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. And he said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his apostles didn't have time to eat. So it's interesting because the disciples are coming back pretty amped. They're like, we need to take advantage of this situation. We are in demand right now. We need to capitalize on that. We need to move. We need to get going. Let's do another tour. Let's get set up, right? Like people are excited. And Jesus is going, let's go rest. Because Jesus noticed the pace that they weren't paying attention to. It's like, guys, we need to go and we need to rest. Let's take a break. Let's stop. Let's rest. Because Jesus was not asking them to push past their limits. He was asking them to acknowledge their limits and listen to their limits. And numerous times, even Jesus pulled away while crowds were gathering for him, while people were shouting his name with all of their might because, Jesus is the only person that can heal so-and-so or whatever. While this is happening, Jesus would withdraw and be alone and go take time alone to pray. The demand was always there. The stress was always there, but Jesus dictated the pace. No one else did. He determined the pace. And I think we need to listen to Jesus and slow down a bit, right? I know I push my limits too often. My body sends me little signals. You ever been sitting down or trying to go to sleep and all of a sudden you get that little rush of anxiety that comes out of nowhere? It feels like your heart starts racing for just a few seconds and you don't know where it comes from. Now, some days I've had 4 cups of coffee and I know exactly where it comes from, right? Because my eyes are running, I'm looking like this, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, well, Matt, no more coffee, right? But other times, I'm just kind of sitting, trying to enjoy myself, getting relaxed. But it's like right when you hit that point where you're almost relaxing, your body kind of sends this, and they call it a panic attack, and it feels a little dramatic to me. I like to call it a glitch. Right? It's just a little glitch, just a little something where you're sitting there, and all of a sudden you feel a little, little zap, just letting you know that's your body saying, hey, you need to slow down, or something worse is going to happen. Or sometimes you just feel drained, and you just keep feeling drained, and you need to listen to that. You have these, visions of withdrawing and being alone. I know that's like for many moms. They're just like, I just want to be alone for like 6 months. And I can come back and engage. I get it, but there's a reason why that's coming to your brain. That's not you, that's your body telling you, hey, you need some time alone. Like, slow down. There's nothing wrong with listening to Jesus to stop and rest, because not all limits are for overcoming. Some of the limits you have are to keep you from overloading. And they're built in. And the question again is, do you know your limitations? It reminds me a lot of the verse that kind of has been the theme of this series, but I want to talk about it just one more time. It was the verse that we looked at last week where Jesus said this in Matthew 11:28. He said, come to me, all of you who are tired from the heavy burden you've been forced to carry, and I will give you rest. Accept my teaching, learn from me. I am gentle and humble in spirit, and you will be able to get some rest. Yes, the teaching that I ask you to accept is easy. The load I give you to carry is light. And so last week, in case you missed it, you can go online or go on the podcast, whatever, catch up. We talked about the loads that we carry, but really this week, the question is really simply this, is do we know when to slow down? Do we know when to stop? And what happens if we don't? It's interesting that Jesus says this. Just want to spend some time on this for a second. He says, I am gentle and humble. And he invites us into gentleness and humility. Because when you think about it, when you're tired or overwhelmed or stressed, you are not gentle. You're harsh. We do it all the time. I mean, you're running late, you get in traffic. Are you gentle? No, right? You come home, you're exhausted, you're on your last leg, and the kids won't clean their rooms, right? Are you gentle? Do you come in that moment and go, I'd like to politely invite you to clean? No. We're not very gentle in those moments, right? You're on your last leg dying, and you need a coffee so bad, and the barista puts everything in your coffee that you asked them not to, right? Are you going to be gentle in those moments? I mean, it just kind of is. We all can get crabby, grouchy. I've been this way many times, like where you just get tired, and you get this, but we're not gentle. And the reason why we're harsh, a lot of times, we're harsh when we think that no one sees how stressed we are. Have you heard this before? No one sees I'm drowning. But the problem with that is you do. And you're the only one that can slow you down before you run over someone. When we are pushing past limits that we're not supposed to push past, our behavior always gets out of bounds. Because we recognize how exhausted and tired and stressed we are. But Jesus invites you to stop and slow down and find peace that leads to gentleness. Now, he also mentions humility too, which is kind of weird because we don't really act very arrogant and prideful when we're tired. But I don't think that's what he's talking about. Because another way to define humility is simply this. Humility is also having a sober view of yourself and your limitations. Being humble is saying, I know what I can do and I know what I can't do. I know what I should do and I know what I shouldn't do because I'm human. And being humble is not driving recklessly at full speed. Being humble is being sober as you drive and driving within the limits. and saying, like, this is the way I'm going to have to live right now because I know what I can take and what I cannot take. But Matt, that's all fine and good, and Jesus stuff, whatever, I got it. But I have a lot of responsibilities. If I have to do this and I have to do that, because if I don't, it doesn't get done. And that is 100% true. You have a lot of responsibilities, but you also have a lot of limitations. And you got to hold both, because you cannot do it all. Here's the greatest sign if you are sober about yourself is your schedule. That's how you know. If your schedule's too much, if you look at your calendar every week and want to throw up because you're like, I don't even know how I'm going to get through half this stuff, then you don't have a sober view of yourself. No one, I wonder why I'm stressed, and I wonder why I'm not healthy, and I wonder why things aren't going. Well, here it is, right here. Here's the greatest sign of your sobriety, is your schedule. And I know it feels like a loss to scale back and slow down. But the Bible tells us in a lot of different ways that a lack of humility leads to disaster. That we can just think we can do it all and push through it and do it all and push through it until what happens? It's called a breakdown. And it's not a fun thing to have. Our pace can keep us from being present. Our momentum can rob us of moments. Jesus is offering all of us rest, a peace that gives gentleness, wisdom that gives humility. And Jesus offers ways to live if we're willing to listen and go down that path with him that lives within our limits, but also helps us so that we're not missing the moments we don't really want to miss. Look at Psalms 23, 1-3 says this. It says, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. I love that it says he doesn't bring me to rushing rivers and say, jump, right? It says he brings me to peaceful streams. He's intentionally bringing you to places where you can recover and be renewed. He wants you to recover your life, but here's the thing. He offers the right path that honors his name, and on that path there's peace and recovery for you. But are you willing to go on that path? If Jesus has adjustments and tweaks or even changes that need to happen on a personal level, are you willing to follow him in that? Well, can I just come on Sunday and put my hands up and sing because I don't want to do that? Sure. But when we choose to follow him and say, God, I'm giving it all to you, he's going to lead you down a different path. And it's going to affect you in all kinds of different ways. When I think about weariness and moments, I can't help but bring this up. We used to live in Florida. I know, don't judge me for that. Okay, it was for a few years. So every time you tell people that here in California, they're like, oh. And they take 3 steps back, and I'm like, we were just there for a little bit, okay? Chill. Anyway, but we used to live in Florida, and we were close to Disney World, okay? And so we would go there fairly often. And now, if you don't know the difference between the two, Disneyland here in Anaheim and Disney World, the difference is really 2 things. Disney World is way more spread out, so there's a lot more walking. And Florida has insane heat. And if you've never been to Florida, you don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about heat. It is like coming into the armpit of hell. And it is so humid, 90 degrees, 90% humidity. You walk out the door and it hits you just like punch in the face. It is hot. And so that's the kind of heat you're in. So about 2 or 3 rides in, you're already sweating, right? And so you're in the heat walking all day. And then usually when we would go to Disney World, we'd be in the heat all day, and eventually we would sit down and watch this live show called Festival of the Lion King, okay? Now, for me, I've been walking all day in the Florida heat, and so this show meant that I get to sit down in an air-conditioned room, okay? Now, in this show, it's like a small in-the-round theater. There's like a bajillion dancers going, and they're all just whatever. And then there's big animals that come in from the sides, and there's trapeze people flying up above your head. And I slept through all of it. Not once, not twice. 3 years in a row, I slept through the entirety of the Festival of the Lion King. Everything that I've told you is in the show is what I have seen from pictures or have heard, because even though I've been a few times, I have never seen this show. The second I got in that room, it was lights out. I was gone. And this was becoming a tradition. So my wife, Carrie, would take a picture of me every year. One picture of me asleep at the Lion King, and then another picture of what was happening in front of me. Here's a good example. We're gonna show, there's the picture. So on the left, you can see that it's just like dancers, and there's people like flying in the air, and you can't even see the stuff on the side. Like it's crazy going on. And there I am, zonked out. I can't stay with it. I mean, it's awful. I mean, you could have had people on fire running in front of me, and I wouldn't know because I was gone, right? I had found my own Hakuna Matata right there for 3 years running, right? Now, I just wonder, though, as I thought about that picture, if that picture is a lot like your life right now, in the sense of there's so much craziness that's happening to us and in front of us all the time. I mean, you can look at your life and go, if my life is a show and I'm sitting and watching it, woo, right? There's a lot of craziness in front of us. There's a lot of craziness happening to us. And in all honesty, let's be real. We can't always control what life puts in front of us, what happens to us. We can't always control that. And honestly, most of the time, all of us can be in the moment when we need to be in the moment. Most of us, we want to be present with those that we love. We want to live with intention and purpose and engage when we need to engage, but sometimes we're exhausted. And all this is happening in front of us, and we just are sitting there spent. I can't go any further. Because we catch ourselves suddenly in a moment where we realize, my pace is not sustainable right now. I'm going too hard, too fast, and now it's catching up with me. And our body and our mind is sending all these signals, but we keep ignoring them, keep running through them, keep ignoring them. Running on empty. We need to refuel, but we don't have time for that. I got to keep driving. You know what happens? At some point, you're forced to stop. Your oil change light is going off. It's blinking. It's been blinking. You're like, I got time for that. I got to keep driving. Got to keep going. Got to keep going. And then your engine locks up. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is this. Just if you didn't hear anything else, hear this. You may be asleep right now. I get it, okay? Folks, we have to take care of ourselves before we are forced to do so. And I hope that you hear what Jesus is telling his followers. Stop. Slow down. Rest. Don't get to burnout. Don't